My name's David Molds, and I'm really happy to be here. As Maria was saying, I've been asked to give you some pretty general information about financial planning and how that relates to somebody who is type 1. I'm going to talk about this in a minute here, but being type 1 myself, I've got kind of some history here. And so I'm going to give you some general overviews. We're not going to talk about too many really specific cases because at the end of the day, while we all are type 1, that doesn't mean that everything applies quite the same way or we have quite the same set of circumstances. So there's some similarities for sure, but not everything applies quite the same way. So what we can do, Maria's already muted everybody, so we're not going to... I have the phone, so that means that my voice is the one that's heard. But along the top, a couple of you have already been playing with this. We've got this there's a little hand along the top of your toolbar there. And if you go and click on the arrow beside it that says Set Status, and you go down to Agree or Disagree, those are the ones that are the big ones. Good job, Annette. After you... So there's a couple of times through here, this will be the way that we kind of talk to each other. So there we go. Everybody's getting the hang of this. So after we do this, there's also a really important one called Clear Status. So after we sort of have a conversation and you agree, disagree, whatever, can you just clear that off so that then we can keep going forward? So let's get everybody to try and give it a try. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Let's try the applause. Yay. Beautiful. Now we've got that figured out, and some more people are coming online. So here's some of the smaller print. We're actually recording all this. The CDA has asked me, wanted to record this session. Everything's being recorded here, and just my voice and the session here. The information that I'm giving out, there's people that are all across. I believe the majority of folks are in Alberta. Because of my licenses and the way that I operate, I have to tell you that the things that I'm talking about are right for Alberta. I know that. Outside of Alberta, check with somebody who is a qualified advisor before you go and make changes. Make changes to anything that you're doing. I believe that everything I'm going to tell you is right as of today, but you know what? Things change, rules change, laws change. So let's, again, if you sit on things, then make sure that we check up. And I'm going to give you my perspective and where I've come from and sort of how I've got to here. That, like I said earlier, that means that the result could be different from you. It's going to have some similarities, but you know what? You still need to check and make sure that that the ideas and the planning concepts make sense for your situation. So who am I? Well, I'm a certified financial planner, and I just gave away, I was diagnosed when I was 3. That was 33 years ago. Today I'm a certified financial planner. I work with the that most people want to talk about, but the insurance side is what we're going to be talking about today because that rounds out the full financial plan. You know what? I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a business owner. I have a black belt in judo. I've refereed hockey at high levels, and like I said, I've been type 1 for the last 33 years of my life. I came here and I approached the CDA because I wanted to help people get the right information about particularly life insurance because for myself, I have a life insurance policy. I have a family. As I said, I'm a father. There are things that I wanted to have taken care of. And I had close friends actually tell me that they weren't able to get their life insurance to take care of their family because they're type 1. Well, that wasn't the case. So, like I said, I was diagnosed when I was 3, and by a show of hands, can we use the little check marks or things? Does anybody actually know what this is or seen it? Yeah, a couple of people. For those of you that don't know, newly diagnosed people, I actually got to use. This thing is a terrible looking machine. It's actually about the size of the palm of your hand. And you change, I don't think I can draw on the screen, but the little platform at the bottom, you can imagine being a child trying to use this. That's what I started with. And what we do is we go through and we take a big blob of blood that was probably the size of like a third to half of a dime. And then on the side of the container there, so I'd watch my watch go around for a minute. I'd wipe the blood off and you'd wait for another minute. And at the end of the day, the strip would change color, and you would take a close enough guess at what your blood sugar was at that point. Then we'd write things down. Some people still write them down today, which is perfectly fine, but this is what you had to do because there wasn't a choice. How's that different from today? Well, it's incredibly in 5 seconds. We have pumps. We have this view of the one touch on the right gives you the averages for different times a day. So it helps me, for me, it helps make adjustments. It tells me, I'm averaging a little higher in the morning or at night or whatever it is. Pumps the internet so we can communicate with people like we're doing right now and draw on different sides and different sets of circumstances from different people, which, you know what, it's just a completely different world out there. So today, I'm going to talk about some of the things that I run into when I talk to people. How do we pay for supplies and insulin? Disability tax credit was something I was asked to talk about, and I'm going to talk about it. And then for me, the biggest thing is the individual insurances are available. Like what's available to people? How do you get that? As we talked about earlier, life insurance is something that is certainly available to people who are type 1. It just, again, it depends on the set of circumstances. Let's go through. I think that the folks out there that are listening are going to be sort of in 3 different groups. The first one is parents of recently diagnosed type 1s. Anybody with their hands up for that? Okay. Yeah, there's a few out there. Thanks for sharing that, everybody. The second group are, how about veterans like me? We'll call ourselves veterans. Been around for a while, seen it, know how it works. So a couple of people. And then, how about the rest of you? I'm going to guess that the rest sort of fit into the, been doing this for a little while, but maybe not quite to the veteran status. Is that right? All right, a few more there. Well, thanks everybody for sharing that. It gives me an idea of who I'm talking to a little bit more anyway, and it'll help me go forward. But I mean, when we go forward here, what's the purpose of insurance? An insurance company, as much as we want to believe that they're here to, pay for all of our costs and all of our expenses, the purpose of insurance is to reduce the financial impact of things that we can't predict. Life insurance is a perfect example. If I went to the life insurance company and said, I need $100 million worth of life insurance, well, you know what? They would not insure my life for $100 million under any set of circumstances. That's me. What they would consider is the mortgage that I have on my house, the replacement of income to my family, the me wanting to be able to provide for my son, for my family. Those are the things that they would absolutely take into place. An insurance company, any other private company, are in business to provide a good enough service, and believe it or not, they also want to make money. I know it's crazy to imagine that, but that's what they want to do. And they make their money by pricing the risks that they have in their block of business appropriately. When we talk about paying for things like supplies and insulin and things like that, group insurance, I highlighted the business in the middle here because they're really the folks that create the plan. If you've talked with other people, with other type 1s, you've had stories around the lines of, well, you've probably heard my company provides 100% coverage, or my company provides 80% coverage, or whatever the number is, fill in the blank. But each company's group benefits program can be created completely differently. You can create it to work for whatever set of circumstances are in that group. And there should actually be an arrow back around from the business to the insurance company, because the business creates the plan, and the employee, if you're the employee at the end of the day, you get to use whatever the business owner works out with the insurance company. And an advisor like myself, different perspective. The business is on the top there, and they sort of contract out the insurance company to take part. They make the insurance company responsible for one aspect of their business, and that's the health and dental benefits for their employees. Could be health, could be dental, just depends on how it's set up. And at the end of the day, the employees end up using those plans. So again, paying for testing supplies. For myself, I have about $500 a month that I spend on test strips and insulin and all those fun things. Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot. I've been doing, like I said, I've been doing this for 33 years. Because of judo and because of me being thrown into the ground in judo. Judo's a great sport, but it's really difficult for a pump to work. I don't use a pump. I use injections. Yeah, there you go, Annette. Sorry, I beat you to it. I'm not a pumper. That's just something that hasn't been in my world, and that's okay. Things seem to work out. My A1C today is about 7.1, which is a little bit high, but it's not as high as it could be. I pay for my supplies, believe it or not. My supplies, I'm just there we go. My supplies actually get paid through my wife's company. My wife works for a company that has 300 plus employees. They have a large group, and this is where I was going to go, was if you're an employee, so if you work for somebody else, company size makes a difference, typically, because larger companies have more employees, which means that there's less risk to the insurance company. If we go back to this and you look at the bottom here, if you imagined, excuse me, 3 employees in a company, typically in group insurance, about a third of the employees actually make claims. Everybody else pays for it. So in a group of 3, if you can imagine one of the employees making $500 a month payments on or claims on just your supplies, well, that's going to throw numbers out for the insurance company. That's going to throw everything out of there. If it's one employee in 10, or one employee in 20, or one employee in 100, or one employee in 1,000, you can see that becomes less significant as time goes on. There's also typically, when you get into larger company size, because you have less risk to the insurer and to the company and to the business, you also have the opportunity to have more things covered. Typically, again, depending on how it's set up and how it goes along. If you don't have benefits, or you work for a company that doesn't believe that benefits are part of their issue, then you know what? You probably looked at things like individual plans. All the insurance companies have them. They're not going to cover things like diabetes supplies certainly very often, or pre-existing conditions is what they call them. Because imagine you're the insurance company, and imagine that I come to you and I say, hi. You know what? I'm going to use Annette because Annette jumped in here before. Annette, you're the insurance company, and I'm going to claim $500 a month at least for my supplies. How much a month am I going to have to pay for that? Well, it's not going to be $100 a month. It's not going to be $50. It's going to be in the $350. Sure. Okay, John. We can go for that. I mean, if you're just insuring me, you wouldn't, if this was your insurance company, you certainly wouldn't take in $350 to make sure that you're paying out $500 a month. You just wouldn't. It doesn't make any sense. So those individual plans typically have lower benefit amounts if they cover diabetes supplies at all, or any pre-existing condition, never mind diabetes. So if you own the company, perhaps you're the owner of a private company, perhaps you're the management position, things like that, you can set up your own plan. You can have that conversation about, excuse me, about how the plan is set up and how the plan is going to work. You can also use this thing called a health spending account. It's also called, sometimes it's called a flex account in larger companies, and it's made, the idea behind it is that it's typically promoted as, well, you can do whatever, you might have $500 or $1,000 a year, to use, and it's promoted as something that, well, you can supplement the existing benefits that you have. Well, this is a tax-effective way for companies to pay for health expenses. I'm not going to get into all the technical sides of things, but set up properly, this is something that a private company could use to effectively pay for diabetic supplies out of corporate money. If none of these, other options in the province of Alberta, there's the non-group coverage, which I said, looks at supplies that are in that $600 a year. Well, for me, that's just over a month's worth of supplies that I need. And if we're paying for those things ourselves, then things like the medical expense tax credit could be used. It's not ideal, certainly, but it's certainly better than nothing. Things like the insulin pump therapy program I know exists in Alberta. As I said, I'm not a pumper, so I'm no expert on that program. I think the folks here at the CDA would be a better source of information to give you what's covered and what's involved in that. But there we go. We've got some folks. Yeah, Pump in BC. John, is that people cover up to $7,000 for the pump? Is that what you're saying? Your cost is $7,000, and then after that there's coverage? Interesting. I know in Annette was saying just started a pump, cost me almost $850 a month. Yep. There's a range of costs that go in there, and I know this. I look into the insulin pump therapy program. I know that. Sorry, I'm reading and trying to. My brain only focuses in one place. I'm getting used to this screen here. So we've got. Yeah, in Ontario we're paying for a pump and $2,400. Dwight, is that for supplies as well? Is that what you're saying? $2,400 worth of supplies? Okay. So, like I said, every province is a little bit different, and you're looking for how do things work? How do they work together? Admin is. Talked a little bit about what the registered disability. I'm not really going to talk about what the RDSP is, other than to say that it's a registered disability savings plan, and it's a savings plan to help parents and others saving for the long-term financial security of a person who is eligible for the disability tax credit. This is right from CRA's website. So what's the amount? Well, the disability amount is what I hate when I read off the screens, but sometimes I need to do it. Non-refundable tax credit for severe and prolonged impairment. Well, I think we can all agree that type 1 is severe and prolonged. But where we're going to, and I said earlier that for myself, I don't claim, like I administer these for, I don't have an RDSP. I don't claim to qualify for the disability tax credit. This is going to be very different for a lot of people. And it's going to come, and I'm going to get into some of the circumstances in a second that might be the reason that you would or wouldn't. So what they're looking for is you have to meet at least 2 of these conditions, and then the rest of the screen fills in. Oh well. So at the top here, required to support vital functions. Well, you know what? Testing our blood sugar. and doing insulin is absolutely vital function. The next part of this is that we're doing this at least 3 times a week. Well, I test 5 to 6 times a day. More than that if I referee hockey, more than that if I do judo. But it sure doesn't take me 14 hours a week to do that. Now I say this as somebody who has been doing this, like I said, for 33 years. It takes me maybe a minute and a half to actually do and decide and figure out what I need to do. Now, what qualifies as time is the actual testing, figuring out how much insulin you need to do, and recording the results. That's essentially the short version of what qualifies. So I could see people qualifying if you have complications, if you have parents of younger diagnosed children who are trying to help. I see a bunch of people throwing their hands up here. Whisper minor or major penalty. Yeah. But you have to go through here and figure out. Sorry, the train of thought just got derailed there. But the people who I could see qualifying, possibly not forever and ever, but for a period of time. You folks that are parents of newly diagnosed, you're taking some more time. You're doing things that you're trying to figure out how this all works. I could probably see that taking more time than what it takes me after, again, 33 years of, call it practice. Setting up the pump, so those of you that are pumpers, the time where it's actually working during the day, that doesn't count. But setting it up and things like that, they do say that does count. Now, time is a big thing because there's a bunch of, I only recorded 2 tax cases here, but if you go and look on the Canadian Tax Court of Canada, there are cases that go back a fair ways that actually talk about diabetes and the disability tax credit. And in each case, they've come back and said, this first one is a taxpayer who said that they spent 23 hours a week on their therapy. And their doctor said, well, it probably should only be a few hours a week. And the judge said, in tax court, said, you know what? Well, you're exaggerating how much time you need to take there. The second one was a 12-year-old. The second one that I found here, this is from Jamie Golenbeck, who is, as it says, the Director of Tax and Estate Planning with CIBC. He's a well-respected tax person in the financial world. They said, you know what? You only spent 7 hours a week to administer and adjust your dosages. That's not even close to the 14, so we're not going to have the disability tax credit apply in this case. Again, there's a bunch of other situations that go along with this, but the short version, like I said, there's actually a bunch of other examples, and I went just onto the Tax Court of Canada's website, and you can look up case files. Well, the basic ruling that comes out of it is that the person making the claim tends to overstate the amount of time required in most cases, where diabetes is the only health condition. If there's other things, if there are severe long-term complications to diabetes, then you know what? That's a different conversation, and that's something that should be looked at differently. The last little component here is the part that I love. I love talking to people about, well, geez, all the terrible things that can possibly happen. And I say that very sarcastically, and I'm sorry you can't see me and you can't see my reaction to this, but what individual insurance looks at life insurance, disability insurance, critical illness insurance, and long-term care insurance. These are all the things that we take for granted if we work somewhere or we don't have any health conditions. Typically, individual life insurance is available to people who are type 1. I have life insurance in place on my life. If I leave here tonight and I don't make it home, I told you earlier about my family and the important things that are there for me. Whether I have an insulin reaction on the road, which let's touch wood and hope that doesn't happen, or somebody hits me, whatever the situation is, the insurance company is going to write my wife a check. because of the fact that we're diabetic, remember what I talked about how insurance companies work? They need to price their risks appropriately. And somebody who is type 1 has a statistically shorter, I'm going to, not the correct words, but statistically shorter lifespan than what someone who is, compared to someone who is not. All things being equal. That means that you have to pay more to cover that risk. The insurance company wants more money because they expect to be paying out that claim earlier than someone who's not an insulin-dependent diabetic. So how do they figure out how they make that risk? Well, control. Your A1C reading is the number one factor that they take into account. And then they look at things like, has it been consistent? Is your A1C 8.1, this quarter, and 7.2 the next, and 8.6 the next? What's the trend happening? Where's the trend going? Is the trend going up? Is the trend going down? Is it pretty flat? When you go and see your doctor, are you following? Is your doctor? Someone's checking in. David is following up with the things that I've told him to do, and he's following his medication. He's following the diet that he should be. How long have you been diabetic? It's an interesting conversation because the insurance company realizes that the longer you've been doing this, the more experience you have, the more you know how to. Again, I've said some things tonight that just kind of happen automatically for me. I know right now that my blood sugar is a little bit high. I have that terrible taste in my mouth. I know what that is, and I'm drinking water right now. Excuse me, and that's typing something. Yeah, there you go. So there's things that I know are happening. That's from some of the stress of actually providing a presentation to people, and that's just how it goes. How long you've been diabetic goes into how can you show the insurance company that you know what's happening. I mean, for me, in Alberta, you used to be able to have your driver's license or your learner's permit at age 14. Well, I've had my learner's permit and my driver's license ever since. I was thinking about that when I was driving over here. It used to be that you'd have to get this redone certified every year. I'm now at the point where I have the same 5-year renewal that a non-insulin dependent diabetic has. So those are good things and good things that the insurance company wants to see. Negative factors, of course. If you're into kidney damage, if you're into if you're into any of the long-term complications that nobody really wants to talk about and have a conversation about, but believe it or not happens, then the insurance company starts to get concerned. And so they should, so should we, so should we as parents, as individuals, as... Yeah, there you go. John's driving a truck and the eye test. Well, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but with Class 1, don't you have to do that pretty regularly anyway? I can't remember. It's more 2-year normal. Okay. Well, we'll just wait for John to diabetic you. Yep, sure. But I guess my point was that earlier. I mean, it's always been, as far as I know, in Alberta anyway, 5 years for a Class 5. Normal everyday. I just drive a car, driver's license. Used to be 5 years, and it used to be 16 in BC. Okay. So it used to be that we'd have a 5-year renewal on your driver's license, whether you're diabetic or not. When I started doing this, it was every year. And if you're driving Class 1 with air, yeah, you know what? You should probably have that done every year. Makes sense to me. So you've got to have the A1C that's going to support that. You've got to have everything in line there. And you're probably not into these negative factors where you're having regular lows or regular highs or complications and things like that. So that's all good stuff. Some of the things that we can't do, and insurance companies won't look at. Critical illness insurance and disability insurance are phenomenal products. But we go back to what are they? And what do they insure? Well, the insurance company is on the risk. Critical illness, let's try and speak, Dave. Critical illness insurance pays a benefit if you have a heart attack, cancer, stroke, become blind, if you lose a limb. Those are all potentially long-term complications of diabetes. So the insurance company says, we're not going to insure that at any price. Disability insurance has a similar component to it. If you end up in these situations that we talked about before, where you have the negative factors or the risk to the insurance company, other health conditions that are going to contribute to that, contribute to those ratings, if you leave a company, you have 31 days to convert your life insurance. If your company has group benefits, of course. You have 31 days to do that without any medical evidence, without any... now, the premiums and everything that you're going to pay are going to be reflective of your ability not to have to provide any medical evidence. There's all kinds of asterisks beside that, but those are kind of the life insurance is something that is mandated, that is actually put in law, that you must have 31 days to convert your life insurance. So if that's the only option for you, it's still an option. It's still an option that's there for you. At the end of the day here, we went through a bunch of things. I went through them as much as I could on a high level because, again, if we take everybody out of this and we talk to everybody, everybody's pretty similar, but they're going to be different as well. We went through some of the basic options on how do you pay for supplies, what that disability tax credit is, and some individual insurance considerations. Every case is really specific, so if you want to give me, like, this is my number, this is my business, this is all the information for me. If you want to give me a call, you don't do it tonight because I'm not there, but an email address, there's links to my business. If you want to ask specific questions, please don't ask them on the line here because that's, well, it's just not the place for it. But I hope that it's